to the world of chiropractic, where we take one epic journey around the world as we explore the 7 regions of the World Federation of Chiropractic. My name is Dr. Rebecca Wilkes, and I invite you to travel with me as we go on this exciting adventure around the globe. Dr. Quinn, welcome to the world of chiropractic.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm loving your London background there. I feel very welcomed.
It's very authentic.
It is.
You moved away about a year ago. Where'd you move to?
Yeah, so literally a year ago this week, I left London and I moved to a place called Bristol, which is 2 hours west of London, off towards Wales. And I kind of started in a new clinic, bought a new house, my first buy, which is all very exciting. And I managed about 2 weeks worth of work in the clinic where I was before lockdown hit, and we were plunged into a whole different level of work. So a year ago, but it's been an interesting year to move halfway across the country.
Oh, that sounds very stressful. You buy a house, you get a new job, and then all of a sudden COVID. Wow.
Yeah. Challenge. It brings out the best in us sometimes.
Right? Exactly. And it's interesting that you say I moved halfway across the country and you say it's 2 hours away.
I know. To you, I realise that's like little stone's throw.
Are you still in the same clinic in Bristol?
I am, yes. So I joined Cleve Chiropractic, which is owned and run by my best friend, Tim Button. And so it's a multidisciplinary clinic. We have 10 treatment rooms. We have a gym. We have an Alter-G room, which is an anti-gravity treadmill, which is very cool and something you don't often have in a clinic. So we've got a mixture of chiropractors, physiotherapists. We have acupuncture. We have X-ray facilities. We've got sports therapists and rehabilitators. So it's a truly integrated team, and you get a lot of co-working and there's a lot of referral working as well. So traditionally, I think most multidisciplinary clinics, it's kind of, yes, you've got all these things under one roof, but it's kind of, you're almost in your little silos, aren't you? And it's kind of patients might go between you all. What we're really trying to do at Cleve is to have a kind of all-round approach onto the patient in the middle. So patients may well be seen by both a physio and a chiropractor and or a sports therapist all on the same day when they come in, so that they're getting a bit more similar treatment to how we tend to treat in sport. So you've got this kind of all eyes on the one person rather than individual approaches that kind of are meant to overlap somehow. It's tricky, but we're trying to make it work.
Right. I guess all eyes on that person kind of sounds like patient-centered care to me.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, it does sound like patient-centered care, patient in the middle. So it's, I say the logistics are the kind of most complex bit, making sure that the physio's got the time at the same time you do to see that patient and that it works for the patient. But it seems to work really smoothly, and we're seeing more and more of this kind of integrated approach towards the patient. And the more we get used to it, the more patients get used to it. I think it becomes more of an expectation. Their needs and kind of goals for their physicality are just as important as the player who wants to get out and play at the weekend.
Do you guys fight over the anti-gravity treadmill?
There's sometimes a queue for it. Yeah, it's very cool. I don't know if you've ever been on one. Traditionally in sport, we would use it as a rehab tool. So say you have a player going return to play, you would put them into the Alter-G. They've got a cool pair of shorts they wear and they kind of get into this vacuum situation kind of within the treadmill, and you can literally take them down to 0% body weight. So you can make it so that they're just like running on the moon, so that it starts to load those lower limb joints, but without the pressure of gravity. So when you're trying to just kind of reteach people to put weight back through a joint, that's the kind of kit we use. So you would then bring them down. You don't often go to 0% gravity kind of body weight. You'd usually start them with kind of 20% body weight, so that they can start to get the process through if they've not been weight bearing for a long time, and then you kind of gradually bring them down to kind of 90% of their body weight, but we've been using it with kind of some of our elderly patients as well. So kind of all across the spectrum of patients. We haven't got them running up hills and on steep inclines like we do the, the football and rugby players, don't worry. But we can put them into the machine and have them walking and, put it on a really, really slow speed, with maybe a tiny bit of incline, just that it simulates walking a little bit more. And yeah, you can, these kind of elderly patients who have maybe been on frames for a long time, that have really lost the confidence of walking, it's been amazing to see them build that up. And you can even just have the treadmill still, put them onto 50% of their body weight in the machine and have them just standing unaided, so that they're kind of building their confidence without having to hold on to their frame. And you can get them doing simple things like leg lifts and kind of heel raises, but all within this nice safe kind of vacuum space of the anti-gravity treadmill. Yeah, it's quite an amazing bit of kit. I could probably talk about it all day.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it sounds like you could really focus on balance too.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a seminar, must be 2 years ago now, when we were allowed to do all these sorts of things. And the team from AlterG came and showed us a few more ideas on things you can do. So we were putting balance boards on the treadmill, putting balls and things so that patients can kind of work on their proprioception, work on their balance with the treadmill on still, but you're just using it as a kind of reducing their body weight. And I've had a patient recently who has put on some weight. They want to start running again, but they're fearful of what that's going to do to their joints, because every time they run at the moment, it's hurting them. Well, we've got them straight in the AlterG so that they can start to run again, learn that process, that muscle memory again, but on a lower body weight. So it's allowing them to raise their heart rate, do some cardio without the strain going through their knees, hips, ankles in the same way that it would out on the road.
Right. And work on the fear avoidance behaviors and all of that. So, wow. I think we could talk about this treadmill for a long time.
We probably should move on.
You have been heavily involved in sports chiropractic, and you've also lectured on the topic in the context of integrative and collaborative medicine. Could you talk a little bit about that as it pertains to sports?
Yeah, absolutely. So May 2019, I think it was, kind of the last sort of time that the conference season was really going. I was really honoured to speak at the Football Medical Association's conference, and I was able to speak as a chiropractor about the role of a chiropractor in that sort of team. So a lot of the things we've talked about already today, about how it's a team decision making, team approach to the player, the patient in the middle of that. But the topic I kind of focused on back in May was on concussion and head injuries. So I spoke a lot about how concussion and head injuries have such a wide-ranging degree of competency in terms of how we're assessing it. And from my background working in rugby, there was a huge amount of tick lists. It was kind of very, very step by step. You have to be able to complete this before you're allowed to go on to the next phase of return to play. And football has kind of been in the second wave of that. I think traditionally rugby is where you would expect more head injuries. So they've had to be, or kind of guess a little bit more ahead of it. But I spoke a lot about how the neck is involved in concussion. And we talked about how, as a chiropractor, I would assess a neck orthopedically, neurologically, and how the findings I can get from a good orthopedic neurological exam of the neck can then impact on a player's return to play. And it was really interesting, because I think the docs in the room, or the medics, were kind of, when they think concussion, it's here up. It's like nothing exists below kind of the jaw and, C naught. So it's kind of, they're all worried about the brain. And it's kind of, yeah, you be worried about the brain. I will happily let you take complete control of anything there up for now when it comes to concussion. But actually, when it comes to the neck, which is, very, very involved in any sort of head injury, of course it is, it's kind of where your head's attached to the rest of your body. I wanted to make sure that they could see that there was a role for someone like myself. Some specialist physios as well would be able to do these sorts of things, but as a chiropractor, it's kind of our bread and butter. That's an area that we could look at a lot. So it was nice to kind of open their eyes to, chiropractors do neuro exams, they do all these orthopedic tests. We thought you just came in and cracked people. It's kind of, no, actually there's a whole diagnostic element to what we're doing. And I imagine most docs and other healthcare professionals do understand that, but hearing it in the context of an injury that they might not associate with us, I think was quite useful for them.
So what I've found, I work in an integrative environment also, is that we as chiropractors, we think that automatically there is some sort of bias against us. And in all actuality, it's just that these people, these practitioners don't really understand what we do. So unless
Mm.
we reach out to others in a professional manner, nobody will just continue to be siloed. But then once they actually see this and they trust that, oh, wow, okay, so this is exactly what you do, you'll get a lot of referrals and can work collaboratively quite a bit more.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I think that goes across both healthcare professionals who, with all the kind of best intentions in the world, as you say, just don't know our level of training. They don't understand the kind of training that we've been through at university and the CPD beyond, and that then spills over into the public as well. We know, I mean, in the UK, we know that a huge proportion of the public don't even know what a chiropractor is, and so we've been working really hard over the last 10 years to improve those statistics, and we know that that is increasing in terms of public knowledge, but that has to kind of trickle into the healthcare practitioners knowledge as well, doesn't it? But the other question was, I had a kind of a quiz going on, and it was, right, how many years training does a chiropractor do, as a minimum? What's the, what do they do? And there were some docs who were kind of clicking the, a few weekend courses, it was that sort of thing, and it's kind of like, right. And that, I think that's the only way that we can start to open up getting more chiropractors into these areas, is by addressing the lack of knowledge. Because the ones who like chiropractors and know us and have had good experiences, they're kind of sold already. They know what we do. It's the other group that we need to be focusing on.
So if you were going to school in the UK or in Great Britain in particular, what would that look like from start to finish?
Right, so we've got many institutions now in the UK. So all of those institutions, you will leave there with a master's level degree. So you've got, in the UK, you have a bachelor's, and then you can have a master's, which is one step up from a bachelor's. But the way chiropractic runs, much like many of the other kind of integrated healthcare degrees, is that it's a integrated master's. So once upon a time, you would have two different degrees when you left, a bachelor's and a master's, but now it's all just together in one. So for the majority of people, it would be between 4 and 5 years worth of training. You would enter as an undergraduate. I think the majority of students are now doing 3 years of kind of in class, with observations, regular observations in the clinic, where you're learning technique, anatomy, all the usual things that goes into the education of a chiropractor. And then you have a final year where you're in the clinic, and you're doing a student clinic overseen by the lecturers and the kind of tutors on the floor there. So you do a year's worth of that. Once you've met all the requirements that are set by the regulator in terms of number of exposures with patients, competencies that you've been able to tick off along the way, you will then graduate into the world of kind of real life being a chiropractor. And you are, from day one, you are a independently qualified practitioner. But that's a bit scary, isn't it? It's kind of, oh, I've just left university and I'm all on my own, and oh gosh, I can see patients without checking with someone first. That's a little bit daunting. So we don't leave it there in the UK. There's what's called a post-registration training scheme, which is run by our Royal College of Chiropractors. And that is traditionally a year, but some people take a little bit longer to do it, where you have got a very structured mentoring program. So traditionally you would do that with the person you're working for. So you would be mentored by the person you're working with. But if they're not PRT trained, you can still do that with a practitioner elsewhere. So when I qualified, I worked in one clinic, but my PRT tutor was in a different clinic. So I would regularly go and meet with my tutor. Eventually, I then moved and started working for my tutor instead. I just the way things go. But there's options for people, even if the people in their clinic aren't PRT trained. There are tutors all over the country. So yeah, you have this 4-year experience at university, and then you're very well supported in that first year when you graduate.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like a good model. Being able to work with another doctor is crucial in that time period. And speaking of chiropractic, you're president of the British Chiropractic Association. Can you tell us a little bit about the BCA?
Yeah, so the British Chiropractic Association is the largest association of chiropractors in Europe. We've been established for 95 years now. It was our 95th birthday this year, which was we were planning a big party. It was going to be great, but COVID had other ideas, unfortunately. So it'll happen at some point. But yeah, we're here to represent, advocate for, support, and kind of create a community for chiropractors, much like associations do all over the world. We're proud to be members of the WFC, and we've learned so much by being able to kind of integrate with groups across the world. You know, I've had great conversations with everywhere from Australia to Canada to South Africa, all with different needs and demands on them. But there's always a central theme. It's that we're looking after chiropractors who have got fairly similar needs and demands all over the place, but just within different frameworks. We've been ongoing for kind of, say, 95 years and achieved so much. You know, my predecessors have achieved everything from setting up a Royal College to gaining regulation for chiropractors through the Chiropractors Act, establishing new universities. You know, these are really big achievements, and we're in a very kind of first world state in the UK. We have regulation. We have these things that countries around the world would really, really love to have in place. And we're pleased to be able to provide a model for that. But now what I'm trying to do is focus the association back onto its members again, because we have achieved so much in such a relatively short space of time. Now I want to make sure that the members on the ground are able to really feel and kind of garner the benefit of all of those successes. We have a new way that we work, which is a little bit more remote. So we have specialist staff across the country rather than being kind of tied to just one location. Unfortunately, the main issues I think we've come up against would be some chiropractors who are kind of a little bit reticent to change and don't like that it's not faces they recognize or someone who looks and sounds like a usual president. I'm far away from my usual counterparts. But I'd like to think that's refreshing and different, and can only bring a new way of thinking. It's not exclusive. I have a team of people around me who are hugely experienced. I have a past presidents group who are, have been there and done that and achieved all the things we talked about before. But yeah, I think the social pressures that we've all seen through the pandemic of fear creating almost a kind of a negative energy for some people. It's brought out the best in so many, but I think the fear may have brought out some of the kind of less favorable behaviors that we see. So, I think it's like remembering that we're one community chiropractic, and just because someone isn't who you know or who you went to school with doesn't mean that they're not capable and able to do these things. And, it's creating a community around that, isn't it? Rather than a clique environment. So I think that's been the most interesting and probably the biggest challenge that we've seen. But thankfully, we've got a really lovely community within the BCA. So it's the vast majority of people have kind of embraced this and been like, oh, this is new. Let's give it a go. But yeah, hopefully we can bring around the people who are a little bit more fearful of change.
And speaking of the change, that you've been involved with the development of the LSBU chiropractic program. I would assume you have to work with change while developing that program. What are some of the things you implemented?
Yeah, it's a really lovely connection there, actually. So most of my involvement with LSBU was in the kind of development phase. It was when they were scoping out, right, we're going to get this new course up and running. We haven't had a new course in the UK for like 25 years at that point. Right, if we could change everything, keep the best bits, get rid of some of the bits that we don't want, how would we do that? So yeah, it was a big change bringing in LSBU. And again, I think there was some fear within the profession, both UK and abroad, that, it's, this is very different. So it's not the AECC, it's not the AECC model. It's going to be within an allied health professions university. So it did have a different look and feel to it. I think some of the big changes were focusing on competency, focusing on, just because you've ticked a load of boxes, does that mean you're competent to do this thing? Do you really understand it in the context of being a chiropractor? And it's been really refreshing to see how LSBU and now our two new universities who are coming on stream at Teesside and UCLan have both been able to kind of take the best of the past. They don't have the confines of working within a structure that's been in place for 60 years. They're able to start afresh with it. So yeah, it's been great to see them develop their courses, and we're getting much more diversity, from what I understand, within those courses. So being a London-based university, and London, as you'll see in your background, really is it is the centre of the universe in the UK. We need to make sure that we as a profession are representative of the general public. We need to make sure that students, young people who are considering a career in healthcare, look at chiropractic and can see themselves there. Because if you only see people that look like you in a healthcare, people who don't look like you might not be attracted to it. And that's true for both patients and for students. So yeah, for me, that's been the most refreshing part of LSBU is a kind of a different, diverse range of both skills that they'll be able to develop by being in an allied health professions course or allied health professions school, but also being in a different part of the country. I think that's really exciting. And it is a difficult topic for people to talk about because everybody wants to be very sensitive to understanding the needs and the issues of different cultures, different ethnicities. But it's very difficult to talk about unless you are of that ethnicity and that culture. So we need to make sure that we are representative of all of those people and that we're hearing those stories. And, you know, at the BCA, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to be more aware of that. Our regulator is also running a kind of a working group around this, because how are we meant to influence as a profession and be seen as a kind of an inclusive and representative profession if we don't have that diversity? So it will be a real strength for the profession across the world.
I believe the WFC released a diversity and inclusion statement about their stance, and they also have within their 20 principles document an emphasis on trying to really harness and I guess I want to say encapsulate, but more try to really focus on diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, it's great to see that from the WFC, and you know, being on a worldwide stage, the WFC, you know, is diverse by its very nature, isn't it? It's kind of, yes, you're representing countries across the world, you know, absolutely the most diverse organization we have in chiropractic. So yeah, there's going to be absolutely lessons we can learn from the WFC, you know, and kind of take that information and try and use it more locally.
Right, exactly. Well, let's hop back to Bristol. Tell us a little bit about the area.
Oh, Bristol's beautiful. I could go on about Bristol. So when I leave my house, I can go on a walk that will take me through waterfalls. It will take me up and down kind of little valleys. It's very green, lush kind of environment around here. And so people get out an awful lot more into nature. And I think it's certainly been a really positive move for me in terms of my health. Living in this sort of area has, you know, I've taken up running, which this time last year I could barely run for a bus, and I ran 15K at the weekend. So it's kind of out in really beautiful areas. And so you've got a very active outdoors type of lifestyle here. You have a good amount of diversity. You've got everything from the kind of city centre with the harbour side, and then it kind of spreads out into the countryside towards an area called the Cotswolds, which is just beautiful and is kind of half an hour north from me, which is where Richard Brown lives. He's in Stroud, so he's about half hour, 40 minutes that way. So yeah, it's really lovely. A long way that way.
If somebody were to maybe try to relocate to particularly maybe the area that you're in, Bristol, is there anything that you could kind of give them as far as what might be involved in licensing and or how to kind of work into a practice and what that typical practice looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've kind of pointed out, the UK is not as big as America or Canada, and so everything's a little bit closer than some viewers might be used to. But when you want to work as a chiropractor in the UK, we have a regulator. So the General Chiropractic Council is responsible for patient safety when it comes to all things chiropractic. So if you want to practice as a chiropractor in the UK, you must register with the GCC. If you've done a UK-based course, so if you've qualified in the UK, that process is fairly simple. They set the education standards for the universities, so it means that they understand what competencies you've met already. So they will do everything from a kind of slight background check and making sure that you're of good character, that you are fit to practice. And then you get your registration, you join the BCA, you get your insurance product in place, and there's a magic thing that happens where you have to have insurance to register with the GCC, but to register with the GCC, you have to have insurance, which, yeah, sounds really messy, but it's not, because we have a really magical process where it all happens at once. So you do both of your applications, we then have a little conversation in the background, and everything happens at once. So it's a really, really smooth transition once you're able to register. For chiropractors who have qualified abroad, there is something called the test of competency. So this is an exam, a kind of regulatory exam set by the GCC with examiners that include chiropractors, and it's to show that you have met the competencies that the GCC expect of an undergraduate in the UK. So there's courses that you can take to kind of help you understand that, and the Royal College run those courses, and the BCA are able to kind of support you in doing all of that application. So yes, you have to register with the GCC, get your insurance, and then you are licensed to practice in the UK. So I suppose the other part to that is getting the job. Like, where do you practice? Like, what do I do? Some people set up on their own. I can imagine that would be a little bit daunting if you've just moved across the seas and kind of come to our little island of the UK. So there's a huge demand for chiropractors in the UK at the moment. As I say, we are 0.5% of the regulated healthcare professions. We have about 3,500 roughly registered chiropractors. And I think the most common messages I get on email and my text, like on my phone, is, Catherine, I need an associate. Where am I going to find a new associate? Everyone is desperate for more chiropractors across the country. Down in the southwest in London, there's lots of chiropractors, so quite densely populated. And the further north you go, there are less chiropractors per head of population. So there's a huge demand for chiropractors in the UK, many, many job opportunities. And there's lots of classified ads on our website, kind of in our members area, of businesses, clinic owners looking for associates. So yeah, there's absolutely demand. We'd love to have more chiropractors in the UK. So not that we're trying to poach from anyone else, but you're very welcome here.
Move to the UK and become part of the BCA. It has a ring to it.
There you go. You get to be part of the BCA family, which is our little hashtag, and it's that's how we're trying to keep all our chiropractors across the country kind of together in one community.
And you have all kinds of resources, and it sounds like you help to make the whole process streamlined. So
yeah, absolutely. So that's from kind of day one. Our team will make sure that you're kind of looked after in your registration, that will go smoothly for you. And then from that point on, everything you could ask for really in our kind of members hub, everything from what do I need to start a practice? What's the legality around starting a practice? What do I have to have? What insurances? Member benefits, so everything from buying equipment and discounts and lifestyle discounts. I mean, everything from, I renewed my car insurance this week and got a lovely discount on that just for being a BCA member. The little perks. You can definitely save your membership fee just on the discounts that you can get personally through the year. So yeah, we're here to make sure that a chiropractor is looked after in every kind of facet of their life.
Well, I have two more questions for you.
Lovely.
So tell us something unique about you.
Oh, something unique about me, gosh, or a kind of interesting fact, perhaps. It would be, I'm quite proud of my my own sporting background. So when I was on my first course, so I did a sports science undergraduate before I went to study chiropractic. I was there on scholarship, so I was competing in karate at the time. So karate was my main sport, kind of through kind of later years, like teenage years. and I won 2 world championships back when I was 20-ish, 20 and 21. So I don't know many other chiros that have done that. I know lots of chiros that are fantastic at karate and all sorts of martial arts. There seems to be some synergy with martial arts. I don't know if it's the speed and the kind of the quick power that we get through martial arts just translates nicely over into chiropractic. But yeah, I suppose that's one of the more interesting bits about me.
So you may look all kinds of gentle and innocent, but really beware.
It was a long time ago that I was competing, but yeah, when I tell patients that, they're like, "Ooh, I don't want to get on the wrong side of you then."
Don't want to be caught in a dark alley with you.
Oh, I'd be there to protect anyone in a dark alley. That would be my role there.
Exactly. Well, final question. The WFC, within their 20 principles document, they want to really help the up and coming next generation of chiropractors. And so if you had any advice for either recent graduates and or students, would you be able to offer them some advice?
Gosh, so yeah, this is a question we get a lot, whether that's for students and new graduates or just for chiropractors looking to do something new. And I think for me, what it always comes back to is about being a good human first, isn't it? It's kind of, if you are someone who has got empathy, is willing to build on their competency, is good at self-reflecting and trying to develop your own weaknesses or kind of things that you think you could be better at. I think that is what it all comes down to. Be a good human, put yourself out there to kind of be a yes person if you want to gain experience. You know, it always used to wind me up. I was always told I was very lucky to have done the things I did. So before I graduated, I was working for Harlequins, which is one of our Premiership rugby teams here in the UK. I was working for them. I'd been on tour with the New Zealand rugby league team. I'd done all these things, and people kept telling me I was lucky. And I was like, I don't know if I'm lucky. I think I put myself into the positions where the people on the other side had no choice but to be like, okay, yeah, come and do this. And it's, you know, you've got to put yourself out there. So be a good human and put yourself in the way of these opportunities, because those doors don't just open willy-nilly. They open if you go and knock on them. So I think, yeah, it's having that confidence to go and learn from other people, but doing it with a bit of humility and a willingness to learn, and to be a nice person when you're there. So yeah, if I can wrap it up like that, it would be a good human and take every opportunity and send that email. If you're not sure about sending that email to someone because you want to observe them, or you want to just have a chat with them about, you know, how they got to the positions they're in, send the email, because I've had some really lovely chats with students, particularly this year, because of everyone being much more used to Zoom. I've been able to just like have chats in the evening, you know, with different students and different grads, and you know, most people are willing to do that. So yeah, kind of take the initiative.
When preparation meets opportunity, that will likely provide a lot of different experiences, like you with likely the 2012 Olympic Games and things like that.
Yeah, that was definitely me going and hunting down. I was really cheeky. So I do this. So before I'd even qualified as a chiropractor, so I qualified in 2012, and I knew the Olympics were coming up. Obviously, it's in London, so I applied to be a chiropractor at the Olympics. Definitely didn't fit any of the criteria. Didn't have 5 years experience. I'd only been at uni for 4, so you know, definitely didn't have 5 years experience. But the guy that was going to be my PRT mentor, Tom Greenway, was in charge of the delivery of chiropractic at the London 2012 Games. So I kind of thought, well, if he sees me kind of just like really trying and I get to kind of show myself to him again, you know, that can't be a bad thing. And he entertained me and invited me for an interview and took me through the whole process, so which was an amazing experience for me. Went up to the Millennium Dome and kind of had my interview there. And yeah, he entertained the whole thing. And you know, I didn't get to be a chiropractor, but I did get to be part of the medical team. So I was there providing first aid and kind of more like sports therapy at the games. So yeah, it's kind of and then obviously I then ended up working for Tom kind of within the year. So I think those little things that you might feel are a bit cheeky at the time, but it's putting yourself in front of those people that you want to be able to learn from. They'll see that character come through in you, and they'll see that you're not there because you think you're, it wasn't a cocky thing of like, oh, I don't need the 5 years experience. It's, I know I shouldn't be here, but I'm really keen. Please, just give me a chance to just show you who I am. And yeah, the kind of the benefits of just having applied like that paid off in the long run. And yeah, it was fantastic to work for Tom for 8 years, and really develop my kind of my sports chiropractic brain underneath him. He was a fantastic mentor. So yeah, take those opportunities, even if you know that they're not ready for you yet. You don't know what might come of it.
Let's say you don't get to be the chiropractor, but you get to be on the team, you still have an opportunity. And within that opportunity will likely create other opportunities, which is what sounds like has been your life. So
yeah, that's you sum it up better than I do, that's for sure. It's definitely that. And it's where you meet interesting people. So I think people, it's always about people, isn't it? So you make these contacts, you show them who you are, that you're keen, that you're positive, that you're willing to work hard, that you're kind of passionate about what you're doing. Those people that you then meet, they will see you and they'll remember you in the future.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Quinn, I want to thank you so much for allowing us to peer into your life, giving us a little bit of insight and wisdom that you've gained throughout your career, your very successful career. So I wanted to thank you for that, and look forward to one day maybe meeting you in person.
Yeah, I hope so. When we're allowed to go to all our conferences again. Chiropractors are good at one thing at conferences, and that's like getting together and having a good party and a good chin wag about all things, because it crosses seas, doesn't it? So yeah, I really hope to meet you properly soon.